Kia ora koutou. Kia ora koutou. Welcome, everybody. We're just allowing a minute or two for people to arrive, and it's great to see you all here. So welcome. I'm Philippa Jamieson from Organic NZ magazine and the Soil and Health Association of New Zealand. Today is the second day of Organic Week Aotearoa, our national celebration of organic food, organic farming, and organic people, which is all about tonight. We've got a very organic person here. So Organic Week runs from the 1st to the 7th of May, and there are events and activities happening all around the motu. So we invite you to join in, get involved, celebrate. There are movie screenings, field days, all sorts of things happening. And of course, these webinars. So this is the second webinar in our Organic Living Lab series. And tonight I'm very pleased to be joined by Sarah Reddington, who is also known, curiously, as the low toxin rabbit. A very memorable name, I might say. She is all across social media and she shares what she has learned from healing herself from a chronic illness by removing toxins from her life. So it's a really great success story. Tonight, Sarah will be talking low-tox living on a budget and hopefully inspire you to give it a go or give it even more of a go. And now we'd love this session to be as interactive as possible. We want to know from you what the biggest barriers are to going low tox. We're going to be launching a poll with a few options asking you that very question shortly. All of the audience responses are confidential, so yeah, please do let us know what might be holding you back from being more low tox or whatever organic in your life. And also feel free to ask any questions about Sarah's journey or low tox living in general in the chat below. Just click on the chat icon at the bottom of your screen. And the chat function also will allow you to engage with other people who are attending. You might be having little chats there too and answering each other's questions. So please feel free to join in. Now, another wonderful thing happening is we've got some live giveaways, which Sarah will be offering during the webinar. So keep watching, keep listening, and if your name is pulled from the hat, please direct message your address to the hosts while we're on Zoom so we can send you your goodies as soon as possible. Right, just a quick bit of housekeeping. For tonight's webinar, we're going to be online for approximately 1 hour, so till 8 o'clock. And the session is being recorded. We'll email it to everybody who has registered, so you can look back at it too. And so you'll see the wonderful people in whose faces appear. Lou Vicente, hands up Lou, is the Organic Week coordinator. She's been doing an absolutely fabulous job organising everything. So she's online tonight and will be helping with the giveaways and the Q&A session throughout. Okay, and then of course Sarah is live from her kitchen in South Taranaki, and there's a reason she's there, so I'll let her explain that later on. And also before we begin, I'd like to thank all of our sponsors for Organic Week, particularly our platinum and gold sponsors, Woolworths New Zealand and Ceres Organics, for making Organic Week possible. We really value their support. Without it, Organic Week and these free events couldn't happen. So let's start. I'm going to hand over to you now, Sarah, to run through the workshop content.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Philippa, for that wonderful introduction. And it's awesome to be part of Organic Week. It's a week that I'm truly passionate about because, as you all know, if you follow me on Instagram and even on my blog, that we're really passionate about organics because in so many aspects, it's transformed our lives. But anyway, I know that a lot of you guys out there all know the benefits of eating organic. You also know the benefits of going low tox, but we are kind of in a living crisis, and that it can get really expensive sometimes. So I'm going to go through tonight some of the tips and tricks we've learned along our journey to help keep our costs down and make some really big savings. So I kind of will give you a bit of a run through of how I'm going to structure things. So firstly, I'm going to talk a little bit about my health journey and why I am where I am, and also the importance of low tox. I'm also going to be covering some key areas where I feel like it's really important to go low tox, but it's also areas where you can make huge savings as well. So that includes food, cleaners, as well as personal care items. And if we have time, we might cover a little bit more. So we'll see how we go. But we'll start a little bit about me, so in my health journey. So in my early 20s, I was diagnosed with Graves' disease. I had trachycardia, my blood pressure was up and down and through the roof, you name it. It was inconsistent, and it was really impacting my life. To put it simply, my health was in the rubbish, and I was taking beta blockers and carbimazole, to kind of help manage my condition. And I was under the care of an endocrinologist, and the endocrinologist recommended to manage my thyroid that I would have recommended radioactive therapy. And so I looked at the risks of that, and there's quite significant risks. And I also thought a little bit deeper, and I was like, hang on a minute, you guys are wanting to treat my symptoms and you're not actually trying to look for the root cause. And that kind of led us down a track, transformed the way I look at health, and led us down seeing, and it led me to kind of going and seeing an integrative doctor. And yeah, that truly transformed my life and my health. We soon realized that a lot of the things that we were bringing into our home and the foods that we're eating were really impacting my health, and obviously all around us. And the more we looked into it, the more shocked we became. And that kind of leads into the whole idea of the importance of going low tox. So going low tox, kind of in a summary, is basically reducing your exposure to toxins that you're exposed to every day, ones that you can control, because we're exposed to a lot. We're exposed to other things that we simply cannot control, but we want to be supporting our bodies as best as possible and being able to manage the ones that we can't control. So, and with that, lowering your toxic load, you're also lowering your risk of some significant health conditions. Like worldwide, we've got problems with reproductive health, fertility, lower sperm with men. We've got significant developmental delays, and those conditions are constantly increasing as well. And so there's some really key important things I think it's really important to go low tox and manage what you can, so that your body can manage what you can't. Anyway, so that is enough about my journey, enough about me. I want to know a little bit about you guys, and I want to know, we're going to do a poll. We want to know what kind of barriers you face going low tox. So some of the barriers that you might face might be cost, not knowing what to do. It can be so overwhelming. Limited time, like I don't have time to research and look at all this information out there. And then also maybe it's even just simply social pressure. I often will get from people being like, oh, I've eaten that for years and I've had that for years and it's done me no harm, I'm fine. Or they wouldn't sell it if it wasn't safe. So that's like another big thing. There might be other barriers that you might face that aren't in that list. We would love to know. And then at the end, nearing the end, we're going to go over some of those barriers that people face and have a bit of a discussion around it and review them, because it's really, really interesting to know. Because I know when I first started on my health journey and I was told by my integrative GP that, hey, you had to remove all these toxins from your life, I was like, oh my goodness, where do I start? It can be so overwhelming. So we'd love to know a little bit more about some of the barriers that you might face.
Hey Sarah, can I just say we've had 52 people respond to the poll already, and it's looking like 48% of people are suggesting that it's the cost that's the biggest barrier, followed by 51% saying they're not knowing where to start. So this is a great place. This is a fantastic place to start.
Yeah, it is. And this is a great place because we have gone through, because we're a single income family, and we want to be keeping our costs as low as possible, of course, but we also want to be keeping our toxins, what we're exposed to, as low as possible. So I'm not surprised that cost is a barrier, and also just, simply not knowing where to start. So on that note, I think one of the key areas that are really important to start is to look at food. Now, what food do we focus on? What's important to focus on in terms of food? And of course, I'm passionate about organics. Organics, if you can afford it, is the best option. But we know with the current cost of living, that's not achievable for everyone. It's not achievable to buy absolutely everything organic. So I'm kind of going to cover some practical alternatives that will kind of help in terms of giving you the most benefit, but at the lowest cost as well, that you can kind of achieve things in terms of organic and other food items. So anyway, let's crack into it. I want to talk about why invest in organic, like why spend your money on organic? And there's some really huge benefits to buying organic where you can. Obviously, it reduces your exposure to harmful pesticides, ones that cause cancer. Obviously, I've mentioned disrupt your endocrine system, reproductive health as well, a whole array of other health consequences, even ADHD. You kind of want to be reduced, by buying organic, you're reducing your exposure to those pesticides, as well as, I think something that people aren't really aware of is actually some of these pesticides can contain heavy metals like cadmium, which can also wreak havoc on your health. And that was one of the key things I learned first on my health journey, was that actually these sprays are containing heavy metals that are impacting my life. So I think that's not really well known. And in terms of also, we looked at the research. Like, my husband challenged me one day and he's like, is organics actually better for you? And so we kind of did some digging, as we typically do, and we discovered that there's research to support the fact that it actually is higher in nutrients, particularly when it comes to antioxidants. So compared to conventional foods, there were high antioxidants, and also in like meat and dairy products, they found higher omega-3s, and you want omega-3s in your diet. You want omega-3s there to help balance out all the inflammatory foods that we're kind of exposed to and consuming, or a lot of people are. And also, I think another thing that is really important with organics, and I think is important because it eventually comes around to affect us, is that the impact that it has on the environment, which is really, really positive. Organic farmers care greatly about biodiversity, our soil, our welfare of our animals, as well as our aquatic life. And I think those things are so important in terms of making a resilient food system as well. So we're not reliant on these heavy sprays to keep producing food that will eventually may fail one day and not be able to do the job. And it's kind of also like our bodies. If you don't look after the soil and you don't look after that foundation, you're going to eventually get sick and get diseases. So it's sort of like I think that's like why organics is so important, because it's not just our health, it's actually for future generations and looking after our food systems as well as our whole and total environment. So I've kind of preached about organics and how important it is, and they really are. I'm kind of going to talk about, because people, like I've mentioned, not everyone can buy everything organic. So we did a few years back, and I kind of guess we were driven by this because our income was changing, and we were moving to a provincial part of New Zealand, which meant that we weren't necessarily going to have access. So we kind of asked ourselves the question, what do we prioritize organic? And so we took a look at a lot of research from MPI, other government departments, as well as there's the consumer reporting as well on pesticide residues, and lots of information. And we looked at where the greatest risk was in terms of what fruit and vegetables and other items. So what has the highest level of residues and risk of toxins and sprays, like the most impactful. And then also what's okay to buy conventionally, what is going to basically maybe contain minimal toxins, minimal sprays, and also minimal. Or like simply you're removing the skin, so you're removing a lot of the toxins. And so we created this wonderful cheat sheet that we use on a regular basis. It's sort of like a traffic light system. So the red means things that you should prioritize organic and buy organic. So things like potatoes are a real non-negotiable for us in terms of organics, as well as lots of like lots of things that are heavily got high pesticide residues. And then you've got your orange, which if you can afford it is ideal to buy organic. And then you've got your green, which is okay to buy conventionally. And some of that is based off the fact that you can remove a lot of the skin, and therefore you remove a lot of the pesticide residues. So I kind of like to give the example, or think about it in terms of kale versus mango. So you've got kale, which is well known to having high pesticide residues, and you don't remove the skin of kale, you're eating the leaf. And so that's something that is really important to buy organic. But where it comes to mangoes, and I was actually reading this the other day as well, is that by removing the skin and eating the flesh, you're actually pretty much remove the majority of any toxins or pesticide residues that might be on them. So that's kind of an example of how we've based this cheat sheet and how we've done our research. So it's a really effective tool to use in helping prioritize what to buy organic, in terms if you're not able to buy everything organic, and how to best reduce your toxic load when it comes to food. So thanks, Lou, for that. And
we'll send that round. Hey, Sarah, we'll send that round afterwards so people can have a copy of it.
Yeah, definitely. And it's up on my website as well as on my Instagram page and Facebook page as well. It's a really great resource. I'm hoping, all going well with children this week, that I'll be updating it as well, because there's some new information that kind of adjusts a few things and where they sit. Anyway, I think like organics is really important, but one of the biggest things with food as well, I think that's definitely worth mentioning, is about what you're eating. And I think a great way to reduce your toxic load is also to remove ultra processed foods from your diet. So foods that contain additives and emulsifiers, colors, things you don't understand are really important to remove. In fact, actually, they just released an umbrella study, which is a study that looks at all studies in recent times, including a meta-analysis, and it actually encompassed 10 million participants, and it showed that there was a clear link between an ultra-processed food diet and 32 health conditions. And so those health conditions included, of course, cancer, it included type 2 diabetes, heart condition, lung conditions, and even things like anxiety and depression. So we are what we eat is a really true statement. And so I think another really significant way to reduce your toxic load when it comes to food is actually removing ultra processed foods from your diet. So yeah, and so let's get down to how can you actually save money in terms of food? And so I'm going to cover some tips here. So there was one thing that I discovered that I wish I'd known right at the beginning of our like kind of organic eating food journey, is that I highly recommend joining a cooperative. So you ask me, hey, what is a cooperative? Well, basically it's a community of people that have used buying power. So as a collective, use buying power to buy directly from wholesalers, I should say. So you can buy directly from places like Ceres, Chantel's, or Bolstocks. And to be honest with you, that is a huge cost saver for us. That reduces the cost of our chicken, as well as our flowers and things like that. And you can use that buying power to even approach local growers to get things a bit cheaper as well, because you're buying in bulk as a group. Now, I highly recommend finding one. And if you can't find one in your area, definitely start a cooperative. And in fact, this is one of the great things about Organic Week, is that actually they're going to be covering, Robin on Sunday is going to be covering how you start a cooperative. And I've often spoken to people saying, where do I start? How do I start a cooperative? So this is something that I highly recommend signing up to, so that you can learn to have one in your area. there is some administration around it, but I think the cost savings are massive and well worth it, particularly if you get a community of you grouped together. And I've even seen people put on Facebook community pages, hey, would you like to buy organic? Is there anyone in my community? And you can easily collate people together that are like-minded in terms of food. So I highly recommend signing up to that workshop this coming Sunday with Robin. And now I want to kind of recommend DIY, but I want to take it from the perspective that some people have got lots of time on their hands, so they can do a lot of DIY. And then there's some people like us who are incredibly time poor. We've got 3 littlies, so we're running around, and we like to have a few other projects on the side that I won't go into that keep us really busy as people. And so we have kind of done, we've kind of looked at where are we going to get our best bang for buck in terms of money and also toxin exposure. And so one of those areas that we have found actually, and as let me bring over my example here, is actually making our own bread. So we've worked out that we can make our own organic bread with no additives, no toxins. It's just simply yeast. You've got some salt and sugar, and I haven't got the flour here, but we also grind our own wheat berries using the grinder down there. So I'll talk a little bit more about that soon. Anyway, so we managed to get it to $2, which is a significant saving, a huge significant saving, because I can't imagine how much you pay for an organic loaf if you're buying it directly. I'd imagine it is well over $10, and it's actually easier than you think. So it took a little convincing from my husband that we should start making our own bread. And at first I was like, oh, this is such a drag. But once you kind of get into the rhythm of it, it kind of becomes part of your day-to-day chores. And we use things to make life easier for us, like if you can spot it down there, our stand mixer. So that brings the dough together and does the kneading for us. So it takes out the real messy part of the process of making bread, and it's very much become part of our day-to-day lives, and literally takes us like 10 minutes each block of session. So 10 minutes on the initial bring together rise, and then another 10 minutes on the kneading things, or 5 minutes with the machine, and then popping it in our bread loaf and letting it go for a second rise, and then popping it in the oven for 30 minutes. And because we've really streamlined it, and the more you do it, the more you streamline it. And it's in terms of reducing your toxic load, unlike conventional bread from the supermarket, you aren't exposing yourself to high levels of glyphosate and other additives that are in bread as well, that you don't want ideally to not be absorbing. And we worked out also, because a few years back we did a bit of research, as we do, and we worked out that actually wheat berries last years. So we went and bought a whole pellet from Canterbury of organic wheat berries, and so we get the whole benefit of the nutrients from that as well, and also the cost benefit. But then we just worked out the other day that in fact, if you're not lucky enough to have like a grinder like we are to do your wheat, or buy like a whole half a pellet of wheat berries and store them, is that you can actually, through the Ceres Cooperative, get flour, which works out to be around under $2.50 to make your own loaf of organic bread. So that is incredibly cheap. And I advocate for bread in many ways as a good DIY thing, because it doesn't need to be difficult, because it's such a staple, particularly if you've got kids. They like to eat a lot of bread, and it's a great staple to save a lot of money on too, because obviously organic loaves of bread are quite expensive. So it's kind of picking and choosing what things you're going to get your best bang for buck in terms of lowering your toxic load, and as well as cost. And we found like doing bread, our own DIY bread, is one of those items. Even though we are crazy busy, it just slips into our day-to-day life. Anyway, so let's move on to the next area that we kind of save money on. And I'll just have like a drink because I'm like a chatter. And anyway, so the next area that I kind of wish we'd thought about many years ago was actually buying beef in bulk. So here in New Zealand, we are incredibly lucky that our beef is pretty good quality compared to, say, US, where a lot of them are grain-fed and factory farmed. And so a lot of our beef is grass-fed, and a great way where we've reduced the cost down to around $13 to $14 per kg for all our beef. So that's including like your really great cuts and your not so great cuts. So that's really, and without any of the extra water or additives that they add at the supermarket. We find that buying beef in bulk is a great way. So whether you can buy a whole beast or half a beast or quarter of a beast, whatever you can fit in your freezer, it is a great way to reduce costs. And we kind of like, we like to go directly to a farmer or the business and say, hey, what are your farming practices? And often you'll find that they don't, a lot of farmers out there won't use synthetic fertilizers, and they're as close to organic as you can kind of get in terms of cost effectiveness and cost savings. And there are other savvy ways, like if you're like us and you're close to farmland, you can actually put a cow on someone's land and rear it. There are some regulations around that. So definitely check that out. But that can be even, you can save even more money by doing that as well. So that's one effective way that you can save money in terms of getting lower toxic meat and not spending a fortune. Anyway, another one, a way that we save money, and it kind of seems obvious in many ways, but it's grow your own food. And I say this because we are amateur gardeners. We do not look after our gardens at all. But I will plant basic things like kale or spinach or lettuce, or at the moment I've got leek in the garden. And I find that I'll just go pick a bunch of kale to add to our dinner, and I've saved myself $5, and I've done minimal work in terms of looking after it, I have to confess. And yeah, so that's a great way to save money. Like every time I'm pulling out a leek from the garden, I'm saving myself quite a bit of money too. And I know exactly what's going on there, which is nothing, and probably not a lot of love either. But I just kind of want to emphasize, you don't need to be an expert gardener. You can have a small space and you can just plop it in and hope for the best. And often things grow really well. Like we're really fantastic at growing kale, and you can just save money here and there by doing that as well. So I want to encourage you to grow what you can, even if you're like me and you are definitely not a gardener. And another way that we've found over the years is how we can save money is actually shopping around. And so you'll be surprised, there are wholesalers out there. I know that there's Davis Trading in Wellington and Palmerston North, as well as Gilmore's. And you can save money by buying, they often will have organic items bulk, like non-perishable items bulk that you can buy from them. So often we will go there whenever we're in a bigger city, and we'll go buy a lot of our pasta at like a fraction of the cost and store that away. And so it's kind of being savvy and being like, okay, and these wholesalers do sell to the public as well. So that's another great way to save money. And also I find that sometimes you'll find organic products, like say, I often will find the tomato paste at Pack and Save, and they've suddenly like reduced down in price, and I will go and buy a bulk lot of those perishable items while they're cheap, and that way that helps reduce the cost. So often, sometimes you'll find, say for instance, the tomato paste will be nearly $4, and then you'll suddenly come closer to $3. And if you're buying, like say 12 of them, that's almost $12 saving. So that's kind of like a great way we save money. And there are other savvy ways, and this kind of emphasizes again the importance of just simply asking. So we found the last few years that our Lions Club actually did spray-free potatoes. And so not only did we get spray-free potatoes at a reduced cost, but we were also able to support a really great charity too. So it's just like, I highly recommend just asking, hey, what are your farming practices as well? And the final way that I love to save money when it comes to buying organic fruit and veg is actually fruit and veggie boxes. And the great thing about fruit and veggie boxes is that they're a fixed cost, and you actually get quite a bit of bit of value for your money as well, in terms of seasonal produce and fruit and veg. And there are some really great, we're really lucky, we've got some great providers in New Zealand of that. So there's Bounty Box, Live to Give Organics, they ship nationwide. And then there's also Huckleberries that do that serve the Auckland region. And there are other probably lots of companies out there that I haven't probably mentioned as well. So that's a really effective way to save money and get produce and fruit and veggie at a fraction of the cost. And I feel like I might have actually missed a point here, because I'm like, oh yeah, so look, like, yeah, I missed a key point about like searching for local producers. So again, it comes down to asking around. So you'll find that a lot of local veggie growers, and we were kind of pushed into this because we moved to provincial New Zealand from Wellington. So we couldn't just go, whoops, we couldn't just go down to Common Sense and get our fruit and vegetables. We had to actually kind of take our initiative and ask around, and we would find market growers and we would say, hey, what's your farming practices? Are you spray free? And or more often than not, we found that they're actually all farming regeneratively, which is amazing. And so that's a really effective way to get your fruit and veggies as well. We currently get our fruit and veggies from a place up in Stratford called The Commune, and they are all spray free, and they're a fraction of the cost of the ordeal also often to get things shipped in when you're in the provinces as well. I'm just going to clean up. This shows a little bit of my personality. I'm a bit of a klutz, and for the life of me, I saw this video actually recently on, I think, either TikTok or Instagram, not that I spend heaps of time on TikTok, but Instagram, about the life of someone just trying to live a happy life being clumsy. And I really could relate. I was like, I'm constantly knocking over cups and things like that. I drive myself, I don't know, up the wall a little bit. But anyway, I think I've covered the majority of things and where to save food. But if you have any questions, pop them in the chat box as well. But this is a great opportunity, I think, to do a giveaway. So I've been lucky enough to team up with one of the fruit and veggie box providers, Bounty Box, to give away some of their fruit and veg and pantry items at a minimum cost of $85. So that's going to save some money for someone out there this week in their grocery budget. So Lou, do you mind choosing, pulling a random winner out of the hat?
I've just pulled a random winner out of our participant list, and we've got Sarah Wheeler. Sarah, can you please DM your address details to us, please? And we'll get that to Sarah. She'll send you the veggie box as soon as she can.
Yeah.
Woohoo! That's
Awesome.
fantastic. And actually, one thing, Sarah, that the veggie boxes, of course, are great for is low packaging, or like
that's very
box that biodegrades. And I just wondered whether you could maybe just touch on packaging, food packaging.
Yeah, I can quickly touch on that. Definitely. So in terms of food packaging, I think there are some effective ways, like, because food packaging, unfortunately, it's kind of like this love-hate relationship. We almost need it in some things, and we also kind of want to avoid it in other ways, because I don't want to scare too many people with some of the information I know, but as a lot of people know, that plastics leach toxins, basically, to summarize it. And so that's kind of feeds back into the whole benefit of bulk buying, because you're not getting everything in tiny little packages. Like, we're not getting our wheat grain in tiny little packages of plastic, or our lentils, or our nuts and seeds as well, by buying them through the cooperative. And also I do my best when I'm shopping to also, and Sarah's are really good at this, as well as Chantal, is producing things in glass containers. And that glass is probably the most inherent material, in my opinion, that we can get on Earth in terms of not leaching anything, as long as it's obviously not too old and got sort of nice little pretty pictures on it. Yeah, so if you can prioritize buying bulk and also prioritize buying glass, you can actually significantly reduce your exposure to a lot of the plastics that are in packaging as well. And I know companies are working really hard to try and come up with a solution, but someone asked me about soft plastic recycling ages ago, and I was like, actually, we don't have a lot of it because we buy so much in bulk in terms of, and that just reduces, like, eliminates a whole lot of the plastic. And I was thinking the other day, I was looking at recycling, and I was like, it's pretty much like packed full of glass because of all the glass products that we try and aim to buy, so that we're not getting that exposure. But obviously, I think it's important not to beat yourself up, because sometimes you have to buy things in plastic. But if you've got a better if you can, choose glass as something I recommend, or going bulk buying, because you actually reduce how much plastic you're exposing yourself to, and also what's going to the landfill and into our environment as well. So yeah, I think they're kind of like some key things that I would do in terms of plastic packaging. Can you think, Philippa, because you're like a wealth of knowledge in yourself as well, I could kind of dive deep into also what to prioritize in terms of like avoiding with plastic. So I think I've seen quite a few posts on social media. One of the things is non-negotiable for us is that we never ever heat in plastic. It is where toxins leach significantly, and we in terms of cost saving, we are quite savvy, and we often will find a lot from op shops, say, for instance. So I found, like, someone decided for some reason at the op shop, and I happened to time it really well, happened to be getting rid of heaps of glass containers, and I just bought as many as I could, and I think they cost like $3, and that's amazing. So like the op shop is a great place. The only thing I would say about buying glass from the op shop is make sure that it doesn't have any pretty little designs, because it can often contain things like lead. So you just want your plain glass. And we also prioritize, because I have to confess, I brought a lot of lovely looking plasticware prior to having kids, and before I even realized what plastic was. And so we're not kind of in a position to go change absolutely everything into glass. So one of the key things I kind of encourage people is to prioritize putting liquids in glass, because obviously liquids, there's more capacity for the plastic to leach into liquid. Is also particularly fatty foods and acidic foods as well. The research shows that it is definitely going to leach using, if you're storing fatty or acidic foods into plastic as well. So I would definitely prioritize that. And great, if you can get your dry goods in glass, that's amazing too as well. One way that we're doing it prior to me getting all the glassware up here is that we bought a lot of the series pickles, because I have a 4-year-old who loves pickles, and we ended up we were storing even in the pantry now, we're storing a lot of our dry goods in those pickle glasses, because they're lovely big jars. The pickle jars, storing a lot of our dry goods in there, and also giving them away to people for preserving is what happened as well there. So you can reuse a lot and save yourself a lot of money too as well. I think it's key to emphasize that that's a great way to also reduce what's going out to recycling and rubbish as well.
Great ideas. Thanks, Sarah. Hey, we have a few people in the chat that are really keen to get onto the LowTox cleaning products. So
awesome.
Perhaps we better move on to that.
Perfect. So I'm kind of probably preaching to the converted, but I kind of want to emphasize, I feel like cleaners are a great way to reduce your toxic load, as well as saving like a lot of money. So I think it's like a really good bang for your buck area in terms of health, and as well as saving money. And so like, for instance, I was looking at research a wee while ago and using cleaners, and if you're like me, you're a stay-at-home mum and you're constantly cleaning after children. I think not even stay-at-home mums, every mum out there is cleaning up after their children constantly, and you're exposing yourself when you're spraying to a lot of chemicals like Vox and bleach and ammonia and phthalates, things that are really significantly going to impact your respiratory health. And in fact, this piece of research said that women who clean on a regular basis for 20 years was as good as smoking a pack of cigarettes for 20 years. So that's some pretty shocking facts there. And I think cleaners are another big area alongside food that we can really get massive gains in terms of minimizing our toxic exposure. And I also, like, it comes back down to the packaging as well. Like, if you're making things like your own, like I'm going to be going through shortly, is that you're not putting a lot of plastic into the environment, and therefore it's not going to come back in the circular way and end up impacting you in the long run or future generations, as well as, not to mention, like, a lot of the chemicals in cleaners, conventional cleaners that are out there as well. Actually, you can go look at the hazard list of the particular chemical, and you'll often find that it is toxic to aquatic life. And so I'm like, how can they get away with selling some of those things? But they do. And so I feel like that you can not only help your health, but you can also support the environment around you by switching to low-tox cleaners. And anyway, as I mentioned, I'm really busy and I'm all for easy. So I'm going to share with you some 2 DIY recipes that I absolutely love, that are super easy, uncomplicated, and will take you like minutes to make, because I'm all for uncomplicated. I don't have time, like a lot of people out there. And anyway, so the first one I'm going to cover is my DIY spray that I make all the time, and it is super uncomplicated. And you don't have to have like a nice little glass bottle like I did. I invested in these a few years ago when I was a budding low-tox person in the early days. You can use like an old plastic container that you have that is an old spray bottle as well. And so it's 3 simple ingredients. And in fact, you don't even need to use one if you don't want to. So all you need is distilled water. So I'm actually going to get my funnel before I make my next clumsy mess. All you need is distilled water. So you can just fill it up. It's that simple. And we'll just let that do its job. And then you can use castile soap. And I'm going to talk about how versatile this ingredient is shortly. And you simply take a tablespoon of that with your distilled water. Oh yeah, I see a question. I'll answer that at the end. So, and well, I could probably answer it now actually. My husband got the distilled water from the supermarket, I think, on this occasion for one of his. He has like a big laser machine or something and needed distilled water, and so he'll often buy it from the supermarket, but you can actually also make your own. So anyway, so you've got a tablespoon of the castile soap, and if you like, you can add essential oils. I know a lot of people aren't really keen on essential oils and are quite sensitive to them, so it's not essential. It can add some antibacterial properties as well, and sometimes it's nice for people who are transitioning from conventional cleaners to then having something smelling nice still as well. So I feel like it's definitely worth mentioning adding it, and you can add as much as you like. Obviously, don't add too much, because like anything, too much of something can be toxic. So anyway, so I'll add like a couple of drops.
Sarah, can you recommend a couple of flavors, a couple of the different essential oils that are good for cleaners? What would you recommend?
I'm like a bit of a vanilla, well, I wouldn't say vanilla, but once I find something I like, I really stick with it. So these are from Kitteru. I'm probably pronouncing it really terribly, but this is a really small NZ business that produce their oils, and they're really affordable as well. And so I've always used these oils, and I quite like using, it's probably one of the places I use essential oils is in my sprays. I quite like lime as well, in terms of like the smell. And then there's obviously grapefruit juice, and then you've got things like manuka oil or tea tree if you want to be adding antibacterial properties, particularly say you're cleaning a bathroom as well. They're kind of really good options. But there are heaps of essential oil brands out there, but I really like this one because they're easy to source. I'm supporting a small business, and supporting a small business, I should say, and they're really affordable too. Like, I'm a big believer that these shouldn't have to cost the earth. Yeah.
Can I just mention as well, we've got about 15 minutes left and we want to leave about 5 minutes for a Q&A because we've got quite a few questions. So just
yeah, cool. I'll get motoring. Thanks, Lou. And so anyway, so that's the DIY spray. And like I said, you can add oils to make it antibacterial. What I might do is I'm probably not going to try and make the laundry powder, but I'm going to quickly talk to it. So you'll find, I actually should be worth mentioning quickly with the DIY spray, I make that DIY spray for $1 versus spending something that is like $5.50. So I've got this lovely infographic up here. So that's a significant saving. That's like a fifth of the price of what you pay for at the supermarket, with like less than half, like a third of the ingredients, if that, and things. And you can see, you can understand what's in my spray versus what you're buying and spending lots of money on at the supermarket. The next kind of DIY thing that I like that you can actually save money on too in terms is laundry powder. So I can make my laundry powder for $3.25 versus say buying like what's an equivalent LowTox one at the supermarket for around $8. And they both do 32 loads. And I think it's really important to mention here, I moved to making my own soap powder because I couldn't cope with the options, the lower tox options at the supermarket. It irritated my skin, and I know that is actually a common problem out there as well in terms of eczema. And yeah, so I decided to make my own, and it's really simple. I was going to make it. I have my fabulous this is another cost saving. I have my fabulous blender here that I got from $15 from the op shop to do these because I didn't really want to taint my expensive food blender. So it doesn't need to be expensive, but you literally throw the ingredients. You've got 3 ingredients. I use the Green Goddess recipe, so I can't claim to fame that I developed this myself. And it simply uses baking soda, soda ash, and then your castile soap. And again, you can add essential oils. You can't, you cannot. I don't add it because my skin is really sensitive. So it's really easy. It literally takes you a few minutes. You just pop these into the blender and you blend it up. So yeah, 1 cup of soda ash, 1 cup of baking soda and castile soap. And that kind of leads me on to the point of some key kind of low tox things that I always have in my cupboard when it comes to cleaning. Like, you don't have to have all these ingredients to do the job effectively. I just quickly will cover baking soda here. So in terms of baking soda, that's a really versatile ingredient. You can use it as a scrubber. It makes a really, really great scrubber in terms of, like, I like to think of it as my dry Jif, basically. So baking soda is really effective. It can up your washing and improve like the cleanliness of your washing. There's heaps of purposes for baking soda, so I always have that in the cupboard. The same applies for castile soap. I use it to clean my floor. You can make carpet shampoo cleaner, and you can use it as dishwashing, a concentrated dishwashing liquid as well. And then there was one more, which is vinegar, and I just wanted to quickly touch on this as well because this is good for antibacterial as well as a great low tox fabric softener as well. So they're kind of like 3 key things that don't cost the earth that I always have in the cupboard in terms of cleaning. Yeah, so that's kind of covered us here.
Hey, sorry to interrupt. I'm just wondering if it's time for another giveaway yet.
I think so, Philippa. That's actually a really good idea. So I have, luckily enough, Green Goddess has given me a DIY laundry spray to give away, a DIY laundry kit to give away to someone so that they can make their own laundry powder at home. So Lou, do you mind drawing out someone from the hat for us?
I do. I pulled out Ellie Wong. Ellie Wong, you are the winner. Please.
Congratulations.
Your address.
Ooh. Cool. And so that kind of covers some ways that you can save money in terms of cleaners, and you can get there are lots of places to buy bulk ingredients, but some of the places that I get mine from are Blance as well as Pure Nature, and then Green Goddess as well. And Green Goddess have also given me a discount code that I can share as well later on. I'll share it on my blog as well on my Instagram. Anyway, so that kind of covers up most of the stuff in terms of cleaners. So I'm probably not going to spend too much time explaining why we should be choosing personal care items in LowTox, but basically they are wreaking havoc on our endocrine systems. I mentioned again, fertility, we've got breast cancer as well through the roof. So I can't kind of emphasize enough about the importance of choosing LowTox personal cares. What you put on your skin is absorbed and then goes into your bloodstream as well. So it's like a really important area to switch out. And the way I find the most cost effective, particularly if you're starting out and changing your personal care items, is to do it slowly. Don't just go along and throw everything out you own, but actually just as things need replacing, find better options. And that's where I often do a lot of research around what are great options out there in terms of low toxicity and personal care products, particularly if you don't have time to make your own. So always check out my website, my Instagram page, and if it's not there, I can guarantee I've thought about it, and I'm always happy to give people recommendations as well. In terms of what might be a good low tox item, whether that's shampoo or tanning or soap. And so that kind of takes me on to my next thing. I think one of the ways that if anyone's like me, you've seen there's so much junk in body wash and hand soap, particularly you find fragrances, perfumes, and again, I've touched on some of the health impacts of that with your reproductive health as well as cancer. Perfumes are pretty nasty things. But anyway, what I find is actually a really easy thing to do, and it's really actually quite cost effective, takes you no time. It's literally 2 parts Castile soap to 2 parts Castile soap to distilled water. So, and then you can make your own lovely foaming. So I highly recommend getting one of these bottles, a foaming bottle, just because purely on the fact that it actually makes it last longer as well. And you can see that if you can see that there, that's as good as what it looks like at the supermarket. And you can again add essential oils if you want to, and if you've got sensitive skin like me, you might not want to do that. Another way is that we save money in terms of personal care is that I have an incredibly savvy husband who is on the same page with me, so that's really handy. But one night he's like, one time he was like, I'm going to make soap. So one night, he bought some lye. So we got this lye, which is one of the ingredients you need for soap, and you just need another fat. So that could be coconut oil or tallow, and then just water. So it's like really, really simple. And we got this lye kind of for $50, and it is going to make up a lifetime of soap. Like, we're not going to buy any more lye. And so that's a really cost-effective way. And making soap is way easier than you think. My husband decided one night he's going to make soap, and the first time he just did it and made it, and it turned out amazing. And we have like a year's supply of soap now. So thanks to him and his initiative, we were able to whip it up, and it's just like how his grandma used to make it too. So it's got no nasties. We know exactly what's in it. But I understand again that heaps of people aren't into DIY and don't necessarily have the time for it. So I highly recommend out there searching for local producers, so going to markets or contacting. We've got some amazing personal care producers out there in New Zealand that are actually making things at a really affordable cost, and I often find things will last ages when you're buying them from the LowTox. What comes to mind instantly is like the Everkind deodorants, for instance. They last ages, and they by the time you factor in if you were to buy it from the supermarket versus buying it, you're actually probably going to end up saving some money, simply for the fact that a lot of these LowTox personal care items last a long time as well. But one other place that I've found that you can get LowTox affordable soaps from is actually Beyond Soap, which they're a great New Zealand maker, and they've teamed up with me today as well to give away some of their personal body bars and hair care boxes. And so I'll get Lou, for you to draw a lucky winner out of the hat there.
We have got a winner for the Beyond Soaps is Carrie Dresler. Carrie, can you please private message your address details? Thank you.
Wow. Okay,
Awesome.
it's 7:55 and I, Sarah, I think we've all been really captivated by you've just got so much knowledge. I think we could spend another 3 hours easily. But I'm just thinking that people have got some questions and we should probably move into just answering some questions. So Lou, can you help out with
I will. Some of the questions towards the end were around where you're buying your bulk buy, like washing soda and soda ash.
Yeah, so I've mentioned there's a couple of companies, but you can get bulk buying stuff from Blance. I think it's Blance, BLANTS. She's often doing sales as well, like 10% off, and you can buy it in quite a large quantity from her. And then there's Green Goddess as well that you can buy bulk from, and then there's Pure Nature. So they're 3 brands that you can buy bulk from. I know also you can get a few items. Also, we got things like the Lie Off Trade Me. It's a great way to buy bulk as well. And there's probably heaps of other suppliers out there. I know a friend that gets items from a place in Eltham, but I can't remember the name of it. But there's lots of bulk buyers, but there are 3 that I buy from personally, and then we also take advantage of Trade Me as well.
Sarah, do you have a list of suppliers on your website that we could send out to people in an email afterwards?
No, actually I don't, but I can definitely develop one. That won't take like a moment to do that, because I often have a lot in my head, and I just don't get it to the blog as fast as I would like it. So yeah, I can definitely do that.
We're getting lots of people asking about recipes and suppliers. So I think if we can direct people to a list somewhere, I know we've got some recipes here that we can share with you in an email afterwards. I just want to get to this other question that came through the Q&A, and it says, what would you say it's more important to remove processed foods from your diet or to eat organic?
Oh, that's a really good question, actually. If you don't have enough, I guess like it's kind of like this balance, isn't it? It's kind of like this tiered approach. Okay, I'll explain it in like a tiered approach, I think is the best way to explain it. So in terms of cost, so if you don't have a huge budget, removing ultra processed food is a fabulous way to reduce your toxic load. But I still would recommend, if you can, to go up to the next tier, is where we have created that cheat sheet, is buying those key things that should be organic and prioritizing that. And then the next kind of tier level, I guess, for me, is that, buying as much as you can organic to reduce your toxic load. I wouldn't want to say one is better than the other, because there's different benefits and from like different positives to each of them in many ways. They don't kind of sit concurrently. So it's kind of like this tiered approach. Yeah.
It's a good start to start cutting out, just cleaning up your diet by cutting out.
Yeah. And when I first started my health journey, that was the first thing I did. That was the number one thing I did, is I removed ultra processed foods from my diet. I ate McDonald's. I ate terrible food. I used to buy the $2 McCheeses and live off those things, and that wouldn't have helped my health at all. So I think that is like one of the number one things you can do. And if there's someone that has just started, it's a great way to direct people to reducing their toxic load in terms of food.
I've got a question from Helena, which is talking about she's interested in learning more about heavy metal toxins. So we probably don't have time to go into that now, but is there a resource we could direct her to maybe?
Yeah, I have. You can read on my blog about my journey with heavy metal toxicity, and you can also come to me directly as well. I'm not going to profess I'm an expert in the area. I'm not a naturopath or a doctor. I know what I know because of my health journey. Yeah, so have a look at my blog and my journey as well, and you're welcome to come to me and ask me questions. Yeah.
And then maybe one final question, because it's a good one, before we have to pack up and leave, is from Tina. How much would you expect to spend per week on organic groceries for a family, and what would be a realistic budget?
Great question, actually, and it's something that someone asked me the other day. So we budget $250 a week for our food, but that's not including a lot of the bulk items that we buy. So that's not including eggs, because I didn't really touch on that, but we have our own chickens, and also bulk chicken. It's not including bulk chicken, and often not including beef. But what we do spend on a regular basis, is kind of like funny little things like spices. And I sent a list to a lady, and I'm trying to remember all these things I got from the supermarket the other day. Frozen vegetables is one way. That 250 actually includes our fruit and vegetables that are majority organic, like 90% organic, and we buy probably maybe the odd 10% because we can't get access to it. But that's through us buying from local growers as well, and sourcing things from Down to Earth or Countdown, who are really, or Woolworths, I should say now, who are also doing organic. And I'm trying to think of any kind of other items. It will include treats like chocolate or little snacks to go on the kids' lunches as well. Yogurt, our dairy, a lot of our dairy products that we purchase. So it doesn't include the bulk buying. And if we added in the bulk buying, I think, like, kind of to throw a figure out there, it's possible that you would be needing to allow between 300 or 350, depending on how much you make yourself. Like, I make all our meals from scratch. I never buy anything packet, and so that reduces the cost significantly. But if you follow me on Instagram, I can actually do like a really informative analysis on what we do, and then I can kind of give you a better detailed kind of budget on what we actually spend. But I would say probably allow 300 to 350, because things are increasing in price. That's if you're taking the approach which we do, which is 90% organic and then 10% sort of what.
But of course, it's going to vary too with family to family, whereabouts you are. But that's all really good information. It's 8:02 p.m. and I'm afraid we're going to have to wrap up, because I could happily sit here and listen to more. But I just want to thank you very much, Sarah, for all your knowledge, and of course all your Instagram and other channels and your website. People should really go there and get more information, follow you, and all the things you do. You're really an inspiration, Sarah. It's great because it's very practical. You're not trying to be 100% pure. You're striving for it, but recognizing that we all live in the real world, and we can't all be, everything organic and so on all the time. But
definitely. I just saw someone pop up. I actually have a website, so if you're not into Instagram, I have a website as well, and you're welcome to contact me through my website. Just as so that you know that. Thank you.
Great.
And the website is www.lowtoxinrabbit.com.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a great, memorable name, and the rabbit suits you. I think you're just full of that energy. Yeah. So I'd really like to thank everybody for attending, and hope you've learnt something and been inspired to maybe make something, or form a co-op or whatever. And please do register if you haven't already, if you're able to attend the other webinars we've got. On Sunday morning, starting a food co-op with Robin Guyton from the Riverton Environment Centre, and then on Monday evening we've got the Art of Composting with Katrina Wolf from Blue Borage, and she's a fantastic composting advocate. So we've got the links for those webinars in the chat, I think, do we, Lou? And they're certainly on the Organic Week website as well. And so once again, thanks very much, Sarah, and thank you, Lou, and everybody who has come along. Just organic and low tox as much as you can. All right, have a good evening. Paul Marie.